All right. Hello, everyone, and welcome. We'll get started with today's workshop. My name is Carolyn, and I'm a tricycle contributor and event coordinator. And I'm here with you today for Finding Your Seat, a meditation posture workshop with Will Johnson. So we'll be leaving time for questions at the end of today's hour-long session. You can ask a question by typing it into the Q&A tab at the bottom of the screen, and we'll get to as many of your questions as we can. We'll also be sharing the recording for today's event in a follow-up email, so keep an eye out on your inbox if you'd like to watch the event again or you'd like to share it with friends. My guest today is Will Johnson. Will became a Buddhist practitioner in 1972. He began the formal sharing of the practices of embodiment training in 1995. He and his wife Coco live at the southern tip of the Nicoya Peninsula in Costa Rica, where they've created the Hollow Bamboo Retreat Center. Here they welcome serious meditation students to enter into intensive 7 to 21 day self-retreat. Will is the author of several books and articles, including The Posture of Meditation, the second edition of which was recently published by Shambhala Publications. He's also the guide of Tricycle's new online course, The Posture of Meditation. So we'll post a link in the chat to Will's book and also to his Tricycle online course. Thanks for joining us, Will. We are so happy to have you here today. Let's see. There you are. Hi, Will. I will hand it over to you.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Carolyn. Hello, everyone. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Will Johnson. I've been exploring sitting practices, just this experience of sitting down, for me on a cushion, for over 50 years now. Now, in that time, I've had the good fortune to sit with teachers from Zen traditions, from Vipassana traditions, from Vajrayana traditions. Very, very grateful for all the teaching that has come my way. Even so, I was never drawn to formally affiliate myself with any one particular lineage or school or tradition. My preference has always been to focus on the denominator that's common to all of them, which is just the sitting posture, the sitting practice itself. The Dharma is about sitting down and in many ways, opening to the breath, letting the breath, come alive, and just experiencing, monitoring what happens when you enter into this kind of gesture and the kind of effect that it ultimately has on you. Now, like many of you, I started off, it's over 50 years ago now. And I remember my earliest retreats. I loved the teaching. There was something about the teaching that I just felt drawn to, that was resonating. I wasn't very happy with the experience of sitting. It was pretty miserable for the first number of years. Just so much pain, so much struggle, so much a challenge, so much bracing, that not only was really physically challenging and uncomfortable for me, but it just seemed like all that bracing and tension was keeping me away from just letting the Dharma naturally open through, this particular body. So over the years, I guess it's been one of my main kind of lines of inquiry, if you want to call it that, how to make this practice, the phrase that keeps coming up is how to make this practice of sitting more user-friendly. In that, so much of the rigidity that is, inadvertently communicated to us as sitting meditators, to sit down and to become as still as a stone garden statue of the Buddha, to see how I don't have to do that. I don't have to do that. I get so many students now who, much like me, were so drawn to the Dharma, but really in some ways were crushed by some of the intensity of the traditional ways of approaching sitting practice. And what we're finding, and this is really probably the primary message that I want to share with all of you today, all of that pain, bracing, struggle, it is not necessary. It's not necessary in terms of the user friendliness of doing this practice. It's also not necessary in terms of opening up to the revelations, the revelation realms that the Dharma is designed to initiate, within us, for us to experience. Now, over the years, I've been able to, in a sense, parse down a couple of very, very simple principles, and we're going to be working with three of them today. I call them the three legs of the stool of the posture of meditation. Now, obviously, in the course that we did with Tricycle, we can go into much greater depth and detail, but still, just hearing about these simple principles and just exploring them, even for a few minutes at a time, I think we're going to see with many of you, you're going to find your experience, even through this hour, shifted somehow, transformed even. What has been particularly gratifying to me is that, not only is what we're going to be exploring here today going to make your time sitting, cushion, chair, kneeling bench immeasurably more comfortable. The bonus for me was that it also then, as we learn to let go, as we learn to relax, as we replace bracing with just, in a sense, playing with upright balance that allows you to let go. Not only does that make things so much more comfortable, but it takes us far deeper, far more rapidly into what I call the revelation realms of the Dharma, the shifts in perspective on what my experience of reality is. So we'll start here in a minute. The last thing that I did want to share, the other gratifying thing about this is that the more that I studied, read things just like all of you, read the books by, the wonderful authors for 2,500 years. I'm not a scholar, but I found antecedents to exactly what we're doing in every one of the teachings. So this is not something that I just kind of concocted out of my imagination. The antecedents are there, they're writ large in some of the seminal texts of the Buddhist Dharma. And what I'm hoping that we can start doing is re-inviting them to come into our sitting practice, to guide our sitting practice. Okay, so let's get started. Let's all sit together for a while. I know, as I think Carolyn mentioned at the end of our time here, we're really going to open this up to questions and answers. But for right now, let me guide you through a sitting practice based on the principles that I've gone into in much more detail in the Tricycle course. Okay, sitting is about sitting. I don't necessarily sit down to begin my meditation. The sitting down immediately is the practice. It's here right in the moment of sitting down. Now, you may be sitting on a chair, you may be sitting on a kneeling bench, you may be sitting on supportive cushions on the floor. It really doesn't matter. I personally sit on cushions. I've always done it that way. It was a lot of struggle for those first couple of years, for my knees to settle down onto the supporting mat, for me to find out how much cushioning I needed to raise my pelvis up so that it was at a slightly higher position than my knees. So whatever surface you're sitting on, first of all, let's just start. Examine the relationship between the sitting bones of your pelvis and your knees. Now, if you're on a kneeling bench, it's very obvious that your sitting bones, your pelvis, is much higher than your knees. And this is what we're wanting to bring into our posture, no matter what our surface is, kneeling bench, chair, or zabuton and supporting zafus. And the reason for this is that what that does, it creates a base of support that's going to let the upright torso and the spine just find its way to a natural, more upright position in space. Then if we're sitting kind of, behind ourselves, this is a very common posture actually within the Dharma, especially in Southeast Asia. Sitting kind of, the weight goes down back behind the sitting bones of our pelvis. Try that. Just kind of, lean yourself backwards so that you feel the weight of your torso coming down behind your sitting bones, and see what happens. You immediately start collapsing. Okay, the front of the torso gets shortened, the back of the torso gets overly elongated, the head is going to drop down, or if you want to keep your head upright, you're going to have to exert a great deal of muscular tension in the back of your neck to allow you to do that. Okay, now just shift your weight forward, shift forward, and feel how the upper torso of the body is moving into a position that it's more above or even in front of the sitting bones of the pelvis. And this is much easier to do for the great majority of us, much easier to do if we've made sure that when we sit down, our pelvis is a little higher than our knees. Okay, so this is the fundamental positioning, the initial fundamental positioning that you want to make sure that you paid attention to when you first sit down. Okay, so here we are. We've sat down on our cushion, our kneeling bench, our chair, and we begin the practice. Now, in many ways, and I'm remembering a book, The Tricycle, came out many, many years ago. I really don't know if we still do these or not. They were compendium books of some of the articles, and there was an article that I had done that year that was included. And I remember the buzz phrase of that book was sit down, become aware, and breathe. And that in many ways is, to me, what the Dharma is. We're sitting here, and as we sit, what's the first thing we really become aware of if we examine what is it that's alive, that's sitting here right now? Well, breath is going in and out. So we always begin with the breath. And the Satipatthana Sutta, one of my favorite seminal texts, that's where it all begins, with breathing. Become aware of the breath. And then, as we're going to see by the end of our time here together, it culminates in an altogether remarkable instruction of not just stay aware of the breath, either at the front belly wall, perhaps at the nostrils, but somehow feel or experience how the breath can be felt, to open up and include the whole body. What could that possibly mean? Well, let's find out. The first leg of the stool of the posture of meditation has to do with what I call the line, which is the line of verticality. Okay? The Buddha even says this at the beginning of the Satipatthana Sutta. The first thing to do when you sit down in a posture of meditation, make sure your spine, the upper torso of the body, is erect and upright. Okay? Remember, if we're sitting behind ourselves, everything has to collapse. There's no sense of that upright. If we're sitting in ways that are skewed away from this imaginary vertical axis, what I call the line, we're going to find that we're struggling. We're struggling all the time. I cannot overemphasize the importance and the value of paying attention to this upright vertical axis, and in a sense, feeling that, my body, the mass of my body could organize itself around that vertical axis. Look, the vertical axis is why sequoia trees can get so high, why skyscrapers can get built. And we can apply that to our experience as well. It's interesting for me. I have always sensed that there are two laws of gravity that apply to human beings. The first one we all know. The Earth's gravity draws us to itself, draws us to itself. We don't go floating off into space. Everybody is privy to that law of gravity, but there is a second law, and this is one that has escaped a lot of us. And I really want to share this with the hopes that you will take this to heart and start realizing that you could be a subject to the second law. The first law draws us to itself. The second law liberates us. And what that law says is that, yes, everything gets drawn to the earth, but for those structures, let's talk about human beings, whether sitting or standing, those structures that have organized themselves around a vertical, central, upright axis, that structure, let's talk again about a human body, it no longer has to brace itself, bring all sorts of tension into the body to brace itself against the first law of gravity, that if we're out of playing around with this line, we're drawn, we're sucked down into the earth. Suddenly the sitting for me, you know what it becomes? It becomes a play, virtually a kind of dance, because we're going to see there's a lot of motion that will come into this. It's a dance of balancing. It's a simple dance of balancing. How can I sit in such a way that it feels, through exploring how my body might experience, open to, explore the sense of the upright line, how that can occur, and I can just start letting go. I don't have to hold on anymore. And for me, the primary action, if you want to call it that, of Dharma, of meditation, it's in learning how to let go. I did a podcast recently, and at the end, the interviewer said, okay, well, you know, I get that some of your approach to sitting is, there's differences from traditional approaches to sitting. In a nutshell, can you tell me what the major difference is? And I recall at the time, the line that came through was, you know, the most sophisticated technique, it's not a technique, but the most sophisticated technique that I offer to students is the permission to let go. You know, we don't have to force ourselves into a cookie cutter mold like a garden statue of the Buddha. We can just let go instead and play with this notion of the upright. This dance, surrendered dance of balancing. Okay, so how do you play with that? Well, let's just move a little bit from right to left or forward and back. Go ahead and just explore what happens when the body just starts motioning, kind of moving in a sense around this imaginary vertical upright axis. And then what I'd like you to do, let yourself, as you sit here, be as tall as you possibly can be. Okay, let's start there first. Okay, be as tall as you possibly can be. What is that? It's like, you know, a soldier standing at attention, or a ballet dancer. You can feel all the tension that comes into your body for that kind of height. I remember as a kid on my birthday, my parents would back me up to a door jam to see how much I'd grown, and I do that, and I try to be as tall as possible, okay? As tall as possible, it's only half of what the line does. And this is what we might call an initial koan, a body-oriented somatic koan. How can you sit right now playing with the upright line in a way that you are as tall as you possibly can be, but as relaxed as you possibly can be? So you get the height not by muscular straining, but just by relaxing into this subtle place of playing with balance. So the first leg of the stool of the posture of meditation, Satipatthana Sutta. In fact, it is the very first thing that the Buddha tells us, even before he starts giving us the instructions on breath. He says to sit down in a posture of meditation, making sure the spine is erect and upright. In other words, playing with this koan that I'm calling the line. Okay. So what is so very important about playing with the line when you're sitting? The simple answer is going to allow you to relax and let go. Okay. I'm playing with upright balance. I don't have to brace myself to stay sitting upright. It's just simply there. It's simply there. I can start letting go of all the deadening tension throughout the body. Okay. Now, as we let go of tension, what starts happening? Sensations start coming out of hiding, frankly. Look, the quality of consciousness that passes as normal in the world at large. There's nothing wrong with it. It's part of who we are. It's just not the whole thing. But what it does, if it takes control, to be lost in thought, and you know how often we are, we're just lost in thought. To be lost in thought, we have to institute a pattern of bracing and holding throughout the body and very much up to the cranium as well. It keeps sensations, the feeling presence of the body muffled. Now, what am I talking about as sensations? Everybody go ahead and hold out maybe your right hand with the palm up, okay? And just put your awareness there. And it's just like a flashlight into a dark corner. Just put your awareness there. Now look, quality of consciousness that passes as normal, it's about thought. Sensations are muffled, stifled, covered over. Now, if you were doing this with a smaller group live, I would open this up to people to talk about how would they describe what's going on in their hand. I'll fill in the blanks. Usually what it starts with is, there's kind of heaviness there, or gee, I feel the air on the surface. But then gradually what happens for virtually all of us, we go deeper right into the very center of the hand itself, and we become aware. What is that? It's alive. There's kind of a shimmering quality, vibratory sensation going on, pulsing. Some people call it energy. What is that? Now, even though these sensations are unimaginably small in size and they're oscillating at these unimaginably rapid rates of vibratory frequency, we can still feel them as kind of a vibratory shimmer. Get a little bit of that? Okay, now, where did they come from? We're not pulling rabbits out of a hat. It's just that our attention is not oriented toward the awakening of the felt experience of what sits down on the cushion, the chair, or the kneeling bench. So once we turn our attention away from being lost in thought to right now, the whole body, sensations start coming out of hiding. Okay, so let's just briefly, we're going to do this very rapidly. Put your awareness right up in the top of your head. There's something going on. It may be some kind of subtle motion. It may be very pleasurable. It may be unpleasant. There's going to be areas in the body you're going to feel immediately, oh, that hurts. We want to bring these to awareness, because bringing them to awareness, we can let go. But there's the awareness of sensation spreading through your face. Now, the second leg of the stool of the posture of meditation is about awakening the body. It's not just awakening to the awareness of sensation. It's as though we extend an invitation for sensations, to come out of hibernation. They've been exiled off into the land of the unfelt by the disembodied mind, for them to come back alive, come alive. And as soon as they accept our invitation, we start feeling something through the body, the shimmer, this vibratory flow. You immediately want to greet the acceptance of the invitation by the sensation with a gesture of relaxation. So the second stool, second leg of the stool of the posture of meditation, we're going to jump way ahead in terms of our teaching to, I believe it's the 11th century seminal Mahamudra Tibetan teacher Tilopa, who gives the whole of the teaching in one pithy sentence. He tells us, do nothing with the body, but relax. Do nothing with the body, but relax. Okay, remember, the line is going to allow you to relax and let go. Now look, in the beginning, it takes time. As I said, we're really rushing through a lot here, but I really do want to give you the foundations. Some of you, I'm guessing, are sitting there going, wow, yeah, there are sensations. Wow, I feel something. There's something going on. Or even if it's just kind of a pain, it's unpleasant, but I'm feeling something. Others of you may, just from the little bit that we've done, feel something starting to come alive in your body that actually is your body. We're not attempting to manufacture any kind of sensation here. What we're wanting to do is welcoming this very subtle aliveness that could be felt to stream through the whole of an awakened body. So it's interesting for me. Yes, I'm very, very much body oriented. And I've had wonderful body oriented teachers from both the somatics world and the Buddhist world in my life. I'm very, very grateful for that. What I know is that these sensations exist on every part of the body, and I could allow them to come alive, but I have to let go of a lot of the holding, the tensioning, the bracing in my body for the sensations to come forward and make their presence felt. And remember, that's why the line is so important, because the line, first of all, just allows me to start, letting go. I'm just sort of dancing around this upright vertical axis as I sit here. And breathe. And feel. I sometimes think that if I had been born on a desert island and I had no idea what I was supposed to do with this life, and there was one little sentence from the Dharma, the one that I personally have resonated with the most is that statement from Tilopa, do nothing but relax, do nothing with the body but relax. Because from there, you would have to eventually realize that, if I'm truly to relax, I've got to play with the upright balance, because if I'm sitting like this, I can't relax. It's not going to happen, okay? So that's the prerequisite, the line, the first leg of the stool of the posture, the relaxation, the second leg of the stool, and then the third leg of the stool, how do we keep relaxation transpiring over time? Relaxation is not just a one-off gesture, kind of, just a surrender to gravity, which is kind of what relaxation is. But, okay, that's a relaxation. But if I then freeze in that posture, in that place of the cycle of relaxing, then relaxation is out the window, because relaxation is never still. Uh, the comment, relaxation is very, very challenging. Letting go is very, very challenging. Now, look, again, that's why playing with the upright, and the Buddha says it, the first thing, playing with the upright. That's going to allow you to relax and let go because you won't topple over. The body is constantly adjusting. So we have the alignment, the relaxation, and the third leg of the stool. And look, this is the most radical piece. I understand that I bring to the Dharma conversation around sitting, around the practice of sitting meditation. And that is that if we want relaxation, not just to be sort of one-off gesture, but to continue over time, for the awakened alive body to manifest a kind of evoked, relaxed shimmer, then the body has to be allowed to make spontaneous, subtle, continuous, amoeba-like motions in resilient response to the force of the breath. That wants to, frankly, pass through the body, just the way a wave moves through a body of water. Now look, hold yourself very still. Everybody just hold yourself very, very rigid right now. I mean, really don't move a muscle if you can. Of course, we can't because we still have to breathe. But feel all the tension. So no relaxation, right? Even if we're quite upright. That's the soldier standing at attention. Now just start relaxing. So much tension. Look, everybody, this is the first piece that always comes up when we sit down for our practice. That the Dharma is about getting real. It's not about how I'd like to be or think I should be or really want to be. It's about the reality, this experience. It's about opening to what can I really experience as real that's going on right now. And look, the first thing that happens for most of us when we sit down, it aches, there's so much tension. Boy, I don't feel any, this guy's talking about relaxing emotion. It isn't happening. That's where we all start. And we have to start there. Frankly, we have to feel how imbalanced, tense, and frozen we are before we can start to let any of that shift. Okay? Collapsing from exhaustion. One of the first things that happens for many of us when we enter into a Dharma practice, something we realize that living the life the way we are, we're exhausted. And it makes sense if we are bracing ourselves, if we're not taking advantage of that second law of gravity that really is kind of a getting out of jail free card. Oh, I can make my way through life with so much less tension. Tensioning takes effort. Effort is exhausting. So many of us, I know we've had experiences, I know I've had, in early days of retreat, you're sitting there for hours and it's everything you can do to keep yourself from falling asleep. So let whatever wants to come, and keep playing with these three principles. I call them, in a sense, somatic koans, the line. What the Buddha says, sit with the spine erect and upright. Somatic koan. Somatic koan. Talopa, do nothing with the body but relax. In other words, evoke awakened, relaxed shimmer, just what you're feeling. That strange goings on in the palm of your hand to start more and more extending that invitation through the entire body so that the entire body can come alive. And then finally, what we do, we get back to the Satipatthana Sutta. Remember I said that there are levels of breathing awareness that the Buddha gives us in the Satipatthana Sutta. And the first, the one that most of us are all aware of, he tells us as we sit down, start becoming aware of the breath as it moves in and moves out. Now, it's also fascinating because he says to do that at the front of the body, the front of the body. Well, most of us in our masks are kind of living out here in the front of the body, so it makes sense to start where we are. The two major locations in the front of the body that much of our teaching has embraced as how to do that is either watching breath, really feeling it going in and out of the nostrils, right, front of the body, or in other teachings from Southeast Asia, the front belly wall, it rises and falls, expands outward on the inhalation, retracts inward on the exhalation. That's where I started. That was my first Dharma retreat. It's a practice of rising and falling, and it was wonderful. I mean, the first number of days, I was utterly baffled about what was happening. And gradually, over time, it was as though the center of gravity dropped from being up here, kind of me lost in thought, down into my belly. And the belly was just breathing. Still, that's right at the front of the belly. The culminating statement, just a few short sentences later, there's an intermediary place where we just start. Then the Buddha is really saying, become more aware of the subtleties, the refinements, the colorings, the nuances of your breath. And actually, to do that, you really do have to take a literal step backward into the mystery space of the body, because that's where breath occurs. And the breath comes in is, how is one breath different from the next, different from the next? And then it naturally evolves. And I believe that this is just a natural evolution. If I start down for me in my belly and just play with the upright, play with relaxing the body, eventually that awareness that began at the front of my belly just starts expanding through the whole body. And the third somatic koan, going right back to the Satipatthana Sutta. As you breathe in through your whole body. It's not just focusing here, but feeling how breath can be felt to kind of make its transmitted way through. That's one of the clues to how to breathe through your whole body. Well, there has to be transmitted motion. There also has to be awakened presence. Awakened presence. How could we breathe through our whole body if we haven't awakened, the feeling presence of the body? Now, as I said, this is really the most radical piece I bring to the conversation. It's my insistence that in a truly relaxed body, as you breathe in, as you breathe out, everything ever so subtly moves. So today, in a little bit of time we have left, let's examine our spines, okay? Now, our spine, it's not a column in a Roman or a Greek temple, right? It's all these individual vertebral bones. There's joints between the vertebra of each and every vertebra of the spine. These joints are no different from joints anywhere in the body. They're there for one purpose and one purpose only, and that is to move. It's to move. Now go ahead, put your awareness in your spine as you're sitting. And yeah, even in this little short time as we've been playing with the upright, evoking, relaxed, awakened. What do you even call it? Energy, shimmer, presence, vibration. It's kind of like carbonation throughout the body. And then realizing, okay, if I want relaxation to continue over time, I can't sit frozen. I can't sit still like a statue. I let go and I surrender to the onset of inhalation. It's almost like I'm a balloon. The whole body awakens subtly. Everything moves, expanding, contracting. Let's go back to our spines. If you're sitting there, what's going on in your spine? Any motion with the breath? Generally, not much. Partly, remember, I'm going to go back to what I said earlier. I really, and I mean this sincerely, this isn't just sort of a glib line. I believe that the most important thing I do as a teacher is I give people permission to let go. We don't have to hang on and hold ourselves upright. We can relax instead. And all of us can do this. It isn't just a certain type of athletic body. It doesn't matter what our bodies are like, how small they are, how large they are, how tall they are, how short they are. All of us can play here and make our time on the cushion immeasurably easier. So let's put our awareness in our lumbar spine. That's the lower back. I want you to breathe in with an inhalation as though it's a balloon. Just breathe right into your lumbar spine and feel as though that breath can cause the lumbar spine to lengthen. Okay, on the inhalation. So natural, so easy. We just have to let go, relax within the lumbar spine. And it lengthens, it extends on the inhalation. It kind of contracts and shortens on the exhalation. Okay. Put your awareness in your thoracic spine. This is the upper torso, the back of the ribs attached to all of those vertebral facets. Okay, breathe right in to your upper thoracic, your upper vertebra, your thoracic spine. And it moves, and it moves, it moves, it moves. Put your awareness right up into your cervical spine. You know, mostly when I would sit in front of a hall, a large group of sitting meditators, okay, what strikes me initially, first of all, very good-hearted people, right? And second of all, how very, very still everybody was holding their head. As you breathe in, feel if your cervical spine, your neck can actually lengthen as well. When I allow my spine to move on the breath, first of all, a great deal more air comes in and leaves my body on the inhalation, leaves my body on the exhalation, so that the practice can become an altogether natural surrendering to the force of breath, just in the same way that molecules of water surrender to the force of a wave going through them. And in the relaxed body, pure Talopa, do nothing but relax. That's what can happen, so that it's as though things just start very subtly moving, very, very subtly moving. So no more stone garden statue of the Buddha. You know, once we give ourselves permission and allow some of this awakened relaxation and altogether natural motions to occur. Okay. Then, if we were to freeze ourselves and go back into, I lived here for years, stone garden statue of the Buddha, we really feel how restrictive, shut down, frankly uncomfortable it is. And I also feel how I get drawn and locked into the aspect, the quality of mind that for me, my attraction to the Buddhist Dharma was that, oh, here's a teaching that allows some pulling of the plug on that, some liberation of that, and exposure to a whole other dimension of being. So as we just keep playing with the principles. Remember I said tall and relaxed. Well, now tall and relaxed is constantly moving a little bit. The beauty of this is you just allow it to happen. You don't have to force anything to occur. Just play with the principles. Anyway, as I said, obviously in the tricycle course, we're able to go into all of this, parse all of these out in a lot more detail. But this feels like a nice introduction to give you an idea of what we're up to here. I love this practice. I love sitting. I want more and more of us drawn to it and not put off by the stories of going into retreat and, oh, it's so challenging and bracing and painful. I'm not saying that this makes everything, light and easy, because so much comes up, but it helps enormously. Okay, Carolyn, how are we doing? I'm guessing that people have brought in some questions for you, so let's go.
Yes, thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Such practical, but also profound teaching. So I really appreciate what you've offered. We have questions from a few people about legs falling asleep and feet falling asleep in meditation. So I thought we would start there.
Okay. So that happened to me too, in a huge way. I mean, it was awful. My first couple of retreats, I remember it was shortly after I got out of university. I was living in New York. I signed up for my first Zen course, and I went and bought, my Zabuton, my Zafu, and I sat down so excited in my apartment. I lasted maybe 3 or 4 minutes because there was so much pain. I just wasn't able to do this. And then later on, when I would enter into long retreat, I just felt, well, I guess this must be the price of admission. And it would really be awful. For me, I would start feeling my feet, because I sit cross-legged on a cushion. I would feel my feet, starting, getting that numb tingling, and then it would just start spreading up, and I would have to move and fidget around. Okay. Now, one of the things that I feel very, very strongly about, and it's less true for people sitting in chairs. This is not so much an issue. It can happen on a kneeling bench, and very much for those of us who are sitting cross-legged. I'm just going to see if I can change this a little bit. So I'm just wondering if you're going to be able to see. So here I'm sitting. You can see I sit on a bolster, and now take a look at what it is that I'm sitting on. I found that traditional zafus, it doesn't take long for them to become like pancakes or French crepes or Indian dosis, right? They just compress down, and they really don't supply much comfort or support. So I made up what students at some of my retreats dubbed my flying carpet. What you saw there was 3 levels of foam. Okay, the bottom layer 2 inches, very, very hard foam. Second layer 2 inches, the kind of foam that sometimes we'll go to a foam store and get for a mattress. The top layer 2 inches, that kind of eggshell. I can't even begin to tell you how much of a difference that has made for the comfort of my ankles when I'm sitting here. I basically don't have that issue anymore. For those of you who are sitting on a kneeling bench, a lot of the pain can be where the the top of the ankle gets stretched out. So you can put your kneeling bench on top of one of these magic carpet Zabutons and just hang your feet off the edge, and that can make your life easier. If I ever had an entrepreneurial bone in my body, which I basically do not, I probably should have created these, but you can do it yourself. It's so easy. I like the Dharma is a lot about self-reliance. Go to a foam shop. I think my Zabuton is about 30 inches square. Okay. And then just get 3 layers of foam, hard, kind of soft, and eggshell. Have someone create a cover for it. And that certainly is going to at least help, what's going on with legs and knees falling asleep. Okay, Carolyn?
Thank you, Will. Another question from a couple of people is about hands and the proper placement of hands during meditation.
Yeah, okay, so there are many traditional ways of holding our hands or placing our hands, cupping them, one on top of the other and just letting them sit in, kind of just set them down kind of in your lap, very much of a Japanese approach to the hands. Some people, in Hindu schools, the hands, the palms are upright and maybe on the knees. In many Buddhist schools, the hands rest right on the knees. Sometimes they're tucked in. The key again for placing your hands is find out how your hands are the most comfortable. And again, you're not wanting to just put yourself into a mold, say, oh, hand should go here, hand should go here. Sometimes we have arms that are longer relative to the length of our torso. Okay, sometimes they're shorter. Just let your hands just find their way to wherever you want to place them. Now, look, I do believe we get into this towards the end of the tricycle course, certainly in the longer retreats, online retreats that I teach, or the year-long intensives. We spend a lot of time with shoulders and hands, because what you realize is that, okay, that quality of relaxation that allows motion to occur. Click, 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 it extends everywhere. The shoulders, it's not just like a yoke on an oxen. The shoulders are kind of bobbing a little bit. Okay, and that gets extended down into the hands themselves. So the key for everyone, follow your instinct, follow your impulse. Don't try to do this right. Just let yourself do whatever your body wants to do. There are times when hands don't even need to be tethered like tent hooks into your knees or your lap or your upper legs, and they can actually even move around a little bit. But we're getting probably more advanced than we want to at this point. Keep it comfortable. When in doubt, keep it comfortable.
Thank you, Will. Another question, I'm combining a couple here about diet. And I know this is a little bit separate from alignment, but just in terms of physical comfort during meditation, ideal time to eat or certain foods that maybe don't combine so well with meditation practice.
Yeah, everybody's different that way. Some people are going to be vegan for the rest of their lives. Some people like some eggs and cheese. Some people like some chicken. Some people need red meats. Some people won't eat anything that's cooked. You need to experiment to find what works best for you. The best diet, the one that works best for you. And I know people, for example, who have to have a lot of red meat. I know people who can't touch it. Now, in terms of sitting practice, I always do better with very little food in my belly. In other words, if I'm going to eat anything, I will, okay, what did I do this morning? This started almost an hour ago. And 2 hours before that, I had a protein shake. That was it. So that was some substance, but it wasn't heavy food. If I have food that's too heavy in my belly, no, everything, it does. Naturally, the body is going to kind of contract down around the digestive process. That's how it should. But that'll make it more difficult for me to let go through the line and find these natural motions that are starting to occur. I don't know, many of you may have had this experience. I certainly did when I, in my younger days, was doing a lot of 8, 10 2-week retreats, 10-day 2-week retreats. and you make it through the morning, and you go and you're just so grateful for the food that's offered. And I learned pretty quickly that as wonderful as the food was, and as much of a diversion as the food was, you want to be a little bit careful and not eat too much, because the afternoons could be just, that was for me when I felt heavy, groggy. Okay. So my preference is to enter into your practice. And this is certainly true if you're doing a daily practice of however long, 5 minutes to 2 hours, whatever it is. If you need something very, very light, and then have your meal after that. Okay.
Great. And a final question before we wrap up. One attendee is asking, they say, I find lying down helpful and wonder why there seems to be little attention to this possibility. Is it mainly tradition, or is there some other reason?
Yeah, it's a really interesting question. There is something about the upright, about the upright vertical. If Darwin is correct, animals, the spine of the animal has evolved gradually from the horizontal to the upright. So there is something about the upright that has to do with the awakening. And it's really, really difficult to sit upright if you're not exploring what I call the three legs of the stool of the posture of meditation. It just becomes very hard, very difficult. Now, having said that, when I teach either long retreat or in some of the online retreats that are going to be coming up here in July and August that I offer, or the year-long intensives, we do a lot of lying down. And this is very, very true certainly if we're doing an in-person retreat where we're sitting 8-10 hours a day, that we sit. Look, we're so unfamiliar with this experience of sitting. After a while, okay, I need a break. You lie down on your back and you can continue with the practice. Now, in the longer retreats that I teach, there are practices of lying down that really give us a direct experience of relaxation, of just letting go through the body, just surrendering the weight of the body to gravity. We can get a taste for relaxation that in some ways is deeper than when we sit up. And the same thing is true. I will always begin the opening to the notion that, as I breathe in, as I breathe out, there can be motion through the entire body. It's easier to start that out lying down. I know when I do long personal retreat myself, especially in the early days, I'm moving back and forth between sitting, lying down, standing, moving around. Ultimately it's to play, with all the different postures. They all have a different quality of relaxation that they can allow for us. Sometimes for me, if I lie down personally for too long a time, I can just go to sleep, and there's nothing wrong with that either. Some of the very strong practices, we do have a final lying down section where often that is what occurs. But, play with this in all the different ways. The Dharma is about self-discovery. It's just a path of, wow, I'm kind of aware. Ooh, look at what's this that's going on? Boy, that's thought. Ooh, there's tension in my cranium when I'm lost. Ooh, lost in thought, I can let go of that. So it's just, a path of discovery that I've been fortunate to have stumbled upon. And, you stumble upon something good, you want to share it. So thank you all for being here with me today. I enjoy doing this. I enjoy sharing this with folks.
Thank you so much, Will. Thank you, everyone who came, who participated today. We really appreciate having you here. Hope you enjoyed and benefited from these teachings. So if you'd like to learn more from Will, he has a tricycle online course that just launched recently, and we'll post a link in the chat if you're interested in studying more. His book is also Posture Meditation, and we will post a link to that in the chat box. Will, how else can people find you? Do you have a website?
Yeah, my website is www.embodiment.net, embodiment.net. I go into some detail about many of the different practices that we explore, and there is a schedule of some upcoming online retreats. I enjoy doing these online retreats. Zoom has saved all of us, during the pandemic.
Wonderful. And so we at Tricycle offer these events free of charge, and your support really makes a difference. We're a nonprofit, and we are grateful for your generosity. So if you'd like to donate to Tricycle, it is tricycle.org/donate. And we hope to see you again at another Tricycle event soon. Thank you so much, Will. Really appreciate, again, all of your guidance. Thank you so much. Have a beautiful holiday weekend, everyone.